call this session of the Carson City School Board to order. Today is Tuesday, October 13th. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dawn, second by Joe. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, do we have any public comments about the agenda?
See no public comment?
Renee? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda will be the flag salute, and I'd like to ask you to join us in a moment of silence in remembrance of Wendy McConnell, who passed away. She's a longtime nutrition services worker, and our thoughts and prayers go out to her and her family. All right, thank you. Trustee Cassiopo, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Good evening, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, good evening. I've got a special guest with us tonight. I'd like to invite Rochelle Resnick forward to join us here at the presenters table. Rochelle is the president of the Rotary Club of Carson City. And as you probably saw in the newspaper and by listening to happy staff members, you knew that the Rotary Club of Carson City purchased 911 personal air purifiers at the cost of approximately $121,000. In addition to that, the Rotary Club had numerous volunteer hours to touch these items, make sure they were whole, and then actually hand them out to our staff. And I wanted President Rochelle to be here with us tonight so that we could thank her in person and certainly let her know that these devices have been greatly appreciated by our staff, and offer her an opportunity to say a few words if she'd like to. President Rochelle.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. On behalf of Rotary, when we were presented with the opportunity to do this by an anonymous donor, we jumped at the chance because we love helping the schools. We love helping the teachers and the students in many different ways. And so it was something that was very near and dear to our club and to our members. And I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Stokes and to his staff, because it really was a partnership. We could not have pulled this off without everybody's help. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I can't see you, but certainly we appreciate your support.
And thank you, Rochelle. I'll see you next Tuesday. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Rochelle. We all appreciate that's very generous.
Well, I think we ought to thank the anonymous donor also, whoever it was. Thank you very much.
So carrying on, Mr. President, members of the board, I know that this was also an item that was in the news, and grateful to Mr. Davis and also the Nevada Appeal for taking note of this story. But I wanted to let you know that our food service provider, which is Chartwell's, partnered also with our nutrition services group, and they provided over 7,500 aluminum water bottles to students. These are refillable bottles, and they represent a way for students to stay hydrated in our schools, since our reopening plan actually called for the turning off of the water faucets in our buildings. Instead of having those water faucets, we were able to use water bottle refill stations, And it's really a sustainability opportunity as well as a sanitation and cleanliness opportunity and a chance to teach our students about sustainability. And they figure that the use of both the aluminum water bottles and the bottle refilling stations, that could save as much as 156 plastic water bottles per student. And so you add all that up, and that's a pretty nice way to add some consideration to the environment and also teach our students about the sustainability aspect. And certainly a big thanks to our nutrition services folks and also to Chartwells. So Julie, if you're out there watching, thank you. We appreciate your support. And finally, I'd just like to remind students here in Carson City that the American Essay Contest that is sponsored by our board is getting on. And the deadline for turning in your essay is November the 3rd. And you have until 5 o'clock on November the 3rd, and you can turn that in at our offices, which is 1402 West King Street. And the title of the American Citizen Essay Contest this year is As We Celebrate the 100th Anniversary of the Passage of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, discuss the importance of a citizen's right to vote to Americans and aspiring Americans. So kind of a fun topic, and we encourage anybody who would like to, in any school in our area, to please take advantage and send us your essay. Mr. President, that's all I have tonight. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Next item on the agenda is the board reports. This is for information only, and we will start with Sarah Wiggins with Carson High School. Good evening, Sarah. How you doing?
Hello, how's everybody doing tonight? So I'm just going to talk about a few things going on at Carson High and what happened 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago was our homecoming, which was a decades theme, and for this we had 3 main events. The first one was a tie-dye before to help the 70s day. Then we had the pep rally that Monday before, or the Monday of, where we introduced our king and queens, and that was at the Capitol building where people could drive by and see the candidates and get ready for the homecoming. Then that Friday night, we also had the crowning and the movie night together. And for this, we crowned our king, Christian Garcia, and our queen, Alicia Turia. And from that, we pretty much just wanted to get everybody hyped up. And also, our leadership is beginning to do monthly charities. And for this, we are getting donations from our student store to go towards it. So September was the Michael Moser Defeat DIPG Foundation, which is pretty much a foundation to raise money for brainstem cancer. Then October is breast cancer awareness, and for this we are going to have a hat day, and that's going to be October 22nd and 23rd, where you can buy wristbands the morning of for $1. And then November is going to be pancreatic cancer awareness, and we are still figuring out an event to do for that. And then because homecoming just finished off, we are beginning to create some winter events. For this, we are going to contact Douglas to have a teacher rivalry. We don't think we're going to do the basketball as last year, so instead we're thinking about doing a lip sync battle, but we don't have much details on that yet. And then we're also, for another charity, we're going to try to help out Salvation Army and Fish just to help package foods for the holiday season. We're also going to do a school beautification after school on October 28th from 2:05 to 3:30. We're also going to do teacher appreciation, where we're going to give staff gifts along with the holiday season. And then finally, we're going to plan an academic letter for November 4th in Senator Square. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And don't feel bad. I was just talking to somebody that this year it feels like everything we're lacking details. So everything is kind of like to be continued. Trustee Wilkie, do you have a report for Pioneer High School? Not to put you on the spot, I just heard you had
I
a
was going to do
report.
it under my board reports, but this is fine. Just trying to find his name. So Pioneer High School wanted to congratulate the senior spotlight student this week, or this last month, and that would be Chase Kramer, who's a senior. It's usually given out to high-achieving seniors, but this time it was because he had helped save one of his fellow students' lives when she began to have a seizure. And he calmed everybody else down in the room, so they wanted to recognize him. He's also part of the JAG program, and he represented them at the state conference, and he will be participating in a week-long JAG leadership camp in Washington, D.C., or he did in his sophomore year. So they wanted to congratulate him for that effort. And that ends my report.
Thank you. We'll move on to trustee reports, starting with trustee Carini.
Dr. Conley from Eagle Valley Middle School principal would like to share a few items with us tonight. The first one, Wear It With Pride. Eagle Valley will be conducting a fundraiser for Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Students can wear a hat for $1 or school-appropriate non-SSA for $1 on Thursday, October 15th and Friday, October 16th. To encourage students to check in for attendance on digital days, we are holding daily drawings for any students who check in digitally. Students are awarded smaller daily prizes, leading to a possibility of winning the grand prizes in the near future. And Dr. Conley is not telling what the grand prizes are right now. One last item, we conducted our Bike to School Week ride-along with students on Thursday, October 8th and Friday, October 9th. Students met Dr. Conley and Mr. White at Empire and rode to Eagle Valley in the morning. Students were given prizes for walking, biking, or scooting to school. A group bike ride was also conducted in the afternoon from Eagle Valley back to Empire. And that's my report for this week.
Thank you, Don. Laurel?
Yes, for Fritsch Elementary School, Mr. Brown would like to thank all of those who participated in the Walk to School event last week. They had a good turnout with that. And also, he wanted to remind students that this Thursday and Friday is picture day. So whichever day you come, be ready for pictures this week. For Fremont Elementary School, Dr. Ward explained that they are looking forward to the parent-teacher conferences. And if any parents are unable to come and participate in the parent-teacher conferences, the teachers will be creating videos that will document the progress that each child has made thus far in this semester, and they'll be sending to those who are not able to come to the school for that. And both principals report that they're looking forward to having the pre-K through second grader students back to their schools for 4 days. Also for NASB, do you want me to report on this, Mike? Okay, so you probably have noticed that we haven't had registration for our November conference, and the board of directors, well, the executive committee and then the board of directors met a couple weeks ago and agreed to postpone the conference and training until March of next year. They're still planning to have it up at Harvey's, South Lake Tahoe, in March, and they're working on the dates. There will be some new board member orientations provided to new school board members, and those will be one-day events at several different locations. They're looking at doing one in Clark County, one in Vegas, one in Reno, one in possibly Winnemucca or Elko area to hit, so that those are smaller numbers of people that would be attending those trainings. And then also, you'll know that we usually announce our award winners in November, and they are planning to make that announcement in November, though they're still planning to have the awards banquet in March where they're recognized fully that way. So that's the information I have for NASB too.
And I think that we had discussed the award winners, it'll be on a slideshow, so they'll try to make it nice in, a nice honor in November, but then we'll formally celebrate at the conference.
Yeah, Bridget Peterson, the current president for NASB, and I are going to be working on that slideshow.
As long as they're putting together, a presentation that maybe we can show it during one of our meetings too, to show the winners if we have any.
Sure. Or even just link it to the district website.
Now we won't be as silly as we maybe were thinking we might.
Yeah. right, thank you, Laurel. Lupe?
I have a report from Susan Squires from Empire. They're very excited to have the pre-K through second graders back in the classrooms. And they have begun a recycling program in the cafeteria. Students are recycling all styrofoam lunch trays and milk cartons. And they have reduced their waste by 40 pounds a day. This is very impressive work. Their third graders are doing a pet food drive for their service project. Please donate if you can. And then they want to also thank the Rotary for the generous donation of air filters. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Stacy?
Thank you. Just an update, we did have our Pacific Region meeting over the weekend. Well, it was on Saturday for 3 hours where we got to meet virtually, and there was almost 60 people on the call. And we do have 2 bylaw change or resolutions that were put together. One on connectivity and the internet, and then the other one, STEM classes and how important it is. And I'll get that out to you as soon as we get the final version. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, and then I was lucky enough to talk to Rotary last week and highlight some of the great things that we have going on in the district. And I just wanted to thank the Rotary for that opportunity. It was a really nice audience.
Thank you. Trustee Varner? Richard, I called everybody else's first name. Richard?
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry. Probably a good thing. I got a real short report. The only report I got was from Warwick Bray, and they would just like to let everybody know they're very excited also about getting the pre-K through second grade students back in school. And then also like to thank Mrs. Squires for arranging for me to come to her school on Thursday to observe a remote lesson taking place live. So I'd like to thank her, and that's my report.
Great, thank you. Joe?
Thanks, Mike. A few things for the high school. Carson High Fall and Winter Athletics preseason workouts have begun. The principal had said it's nice to see the students getting back to some resemblance of being normal. They are following all the NIAA safety directives, but the students are pretty happy to be out there and training, so that's good to hear. Also, Carson High, as you heard, celebrated their retro homecoming, and Principal Chambers wanted to just send a public thank you out to the student council. They did a great job preparing fun, safe activities for the students and the staff. Their after-school program Solutions is up and running. So Tuesdays through Fridays, students can come in if they need some academic assistance. And then just on a general note, I just wanted to thank Mr. Stokes. Had a chance to chat with him last week about some district questions and whatnot. And Mr. Stokes is always generous with his time. And I just wanted to say thank you publicly for not just being generous to us, but I know you're always generous with your time, and your time certainly can get spread pretty thin. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. So for Seeliger Elementary School, they too are excited to have the K through 2 kids. Well, I think it's just kindergarten through 2 at Seeliger on a daily basis. And they're also really excited to start to use that playground equipment again for recesses. So the kids are really looking forward to that. I think that probably, we've been getting a lot of emails and inquiries from parents, and so I think that this is a step in the right direction, helping them out. And so thank you for listening to the community, Mr. Stokes. And I think it's also going to be helpful for the teachers who, for those K through 2 teachers, instead of planning 2 lessons a day, you're able to plan for your class and meet the needs. And so I think that all around, it's going to be a win for all. So I think that's great. And then I was going to apologize to anybody in the audience if you see a red cup fly through the air and hit me in the head. That's just Renee getting my attention. We're in different quarters, so she's not in my eye shot, so we're not goofing around. She just wants to make sure that I know we have public comment or something. And then finally, thank you to Trustee Crossman, who brought a delicious pie yesterday that Mr. Stokes and I had while we had our weekly meeting. So that was a nice treat and delicious. So thank you, Laurel. Next item on the agenda is association reports. This is for discussion only. Seeing none, anyone else? Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Comments will be accepted in person through telephonic participation or through virtual participation via email at publiccomment@carson.k12.nv.us. Comments may be made by members of the public on any matter within the authority of this board. Please note that public comment will be taken on items marked for public action or for possible action before action is taken on such items, and members of the public are encouraged to comment on such items at the time they are being considered. Although members of the board may respond to questions and discuss issues raised during public comment, no action may be taken on such a matter until the matter is placed on an agenda for action at a meeting of the board. In making public comment, speakers are asked to identify themselves for the record. Speakers are further asked to refrain from speaking over each other or participating by telephone. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes, whether in writing or oral, and not to simply repeat comments made by others. This is for discussion only. Do we have any public comment on the line, Raymond?
Seeing no public comment online?
All right. Renee, do we have any email public comments? Okay, seeing none. We will move on to item number 7, informational update on modifications to elementary school attendance operations for pre-K, kindergarten, first and second grades, second grade students in Carson City School District. This is for discussion only. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. With this first slide, I'd like to maybe give a little background thoughts. Notice I titled this First Modification. The word used in the public as it has to do with change, which is pretty frequent anymore, is pivot. I know it's a basketball term for most of us, but pivoting seems to be a term that's being used as conditions change and maybe even we go in a different direction. And even if you're a basketball player, you'll know that sometimes that just helps you to shift your weight from one foot to the other, especially if you're playing defense. But the reason for saying this is a first modification is, in my perspective, a hope that we can continue to make modifications throughout the school year as we're able, as our schools permit, and also as governmental regulations change. So I want you to know that it's not just pulled out of the sky or out of my hat when we're looking at potential modifications. There really is some thought behind this, and we talk with a lot of our staff, a lot of our principals, all of our principals, but certainly we ask for input. And as we walk around the buildings and have an opportunity to interact with students and teachers, we are able to observe really what's going on in the buildings. And please know that regardless of how we pivot or which modification we're on, we do have an obligation to maintain the face mask rule and to also stay within the guidelines that our government leaders have given us, which is that pre-K students through 8th grade are to maintain social distancing of 3 feet, and our students who are 9th to 12th graders and also adults are expected to social distance up to 6 feet per person. So obviously we are likely to hit a point in these modifications or possible modifications where we will hit those maximums. And so without having some kind of reductions being made at the governmental level, we'll likely hit a place where we have to stop with modifications. So what's new? I was excited to be able to make this announcement last week and looking forward to feedback from our staff and also from our administrators and certainly from parents as we attempt to bring back our pre-kindergarten students, our students that are in kindergarten, and also first and second grade students so that they can attend school 4 days out of the week in person and on campus Tuesday through Friday. So under this condition, all of the students in our school district will continue to have Monday as a remote learning day. For our teachers, they'll be able to still maintain time to meet with each other in departments, in grade levels, and to meet as staff to discuss pertinent conditions and situations in individual schools, and then, of course, to have time to prepare for the extensive work that our teachers are doing in their classrooms, not only as they teach students face-to-face, but also as they teach students in a remote setting. One of the other conditions that will occur with this new modification is that we're encouraging any of our students in these grade levels who may be in a remote setting now to consider coming back to school full-time, and we'd love to see that happen. We have selected this level of students because of the need that those students have to really become students, to learn the ways of going to school, starting to get that familiar concept of study down, and to have confidence in their teachers and certainly to learn from their peers. And so we would love to have any of our students and families who are in a full remote status to consider coming back to school under these conditions. We're also happy to report that playgrounds, as has been mentioned tonight, are being opened. I've had some concern from some of our staff members about this aspect of things, but according to the CDC, it's not necessary to do full-scale cleaning of our outside equipment like the jungle gyms or the climbing equipment, swings, slides, those kinds of things. And they don't consider it a good use of materials to try to sanitize that on a regular basis either. So right now, the current conditions are that students can use these devices. They're still, however, expected to make sure that they social distance from each other, and will accomplish that through good supervision. We're also going to allow for frisbees and balls that students can play with to be available during recess, and accompanying these materials will also be the sanitizing materials and substances where those pieces of PE equipment can be cleaned off. Another new concept to this first modification is that students of Pioneer High School are going to be invited back to campus regardless of their cohort day. So if a student is designated to be on campus on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but home or at a remote location on Wednesday and Friday, students are going to be invited back to Pioneer for the purpose of being able to re-attend a class if they desire. Those students will be given a workspace and will have access to teachers so that they can be given additional resources or tutoring or support, whether or not that's academic or social and emotional support. So we're looking forward to seeing how this might work. Sarah mentioned that Carson High School is looking at a similar process. They don't quite have all of their details ready to go, but they're excited to follow suit. And so again, just trying to keep socially distant while wearing face masks, but at the same time providing for the immediate needs of many of our students. Any questions about this position or this process that we're getting ready to undertake? So the when is a logical time for us. We are nearing the last week of the first 9 weeks in the grading system or within the school year. And so it appeared that it would make good sense for us to use as our first day back, the Tuesday of the second 9 weeks coming up. So Tuesday, October the 20th, buses will run as usual. All of the services that we are used to seeing, like transportation, nutrition services, health services, safety services, all of those services will be in place as these students come back to school. Now, what happens for our students that are in 3rd and 5th grade? As you'll notice here, the majority of our changes are happening at the elementary school, and our students in grades 3 through 5 will remain in their cohort groups. So they will be on campus for 2 days, and they'll be remotely trained 3 days of the week. I also wanted to make mention, you may have heard of this in other reports, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the cleaning and sanitizing services of our buildings. I know this has been raised by some of our staff, and I wanted to let folks know what's going on. We faced some challenges early in the year with smoky air. That was a tough time, and during that time, we actually had through the process of our air exchange systems and our filtering in our buildings, we actually had some times when we had very smoky buildings because some of the outside air was finding its way inside of our buildings. Since that time, and with better air quality that we're experiencing right now, the folks from our Operations Services Department have installed the MERV 13 filters. Those were on back order at the start of the school year, but have since been received, and those filters have been installed in all of the sites. When the air quality is good, which has been recently, the operations folks have been doing that fresh air exchange 3 times a day. And again, they have the ability to stop or to start that process depending on air quality, and so they're not going to knowingly pump in poor air from outside. But I wanted you to know that that was going on. We are having some challenges with filling some of our vacant positions, especially as they apply to our support staff. We will be needing bus drivers as always, and we have some vacancies as custodians. Please, if you're watching this event and if you are looking for a great job with really good, excellent, I would say, health benefits and retirement benefits, please come and see our folks at Human Resources. We really do need your help, and we look forward to having you consider us as a place to start a career. We're also fortunate from the standpoint of cleaning and sanitizing. We received a very significant grant from the Pennington Foundation. This is something that the Pennington Foundation did across the state of Nevada, and they were very generous, and as a result, we are able to buy 19 Santa carts, which are room-sized electrostatic misters, so you can pull these big devices into a classroom, and in a matter of just a few minutes, there's a very thorough sanitizing process that occurs where a sanitizing substance is put into the air that lands on the touch points within the classroom, and so those have been distributed throughout the school district. That same grant provided us with 25 items that are called Clean Air UV air purifiers, and so these devices are being placed in our nurses' offices and also in our student isolation rooms where students who may be showing symptoms of COVID-19 can be placed. And so we've got really some nice ways to help clean the air in these places where there could be potential things that could cause COVID-19 or other illnesses in our building. So a big thanks goes to our friends at the Pennington Foundation. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some concerns that I've heard. There's a some feeling that maybe there's some incorrect information that's being placed on our district's website with regard to identifying students or staff members who may have tested positive for COVID-19. This is a bit of a moving target, and we post on our website the information that we receive from the health department within the community. Those folks are being stretched really thin. They serve not only Carson City, but they also serve Douglas County, Story County, and Lyon County. And if you've been watching the news, as of last week, Lyon County had an outbreak of COVID-19 at one of their facilities, and it really did take a lot of time and effort, and I just want to say thank you to our friends at the health department. But where you and I might think of a close contact as being someone that works maybe a couple of doors down, or maybe at the end of the hall, or even in the same building, close contacts as identified by the health department is someone who is within that 6-foot social distancing parameter and in that space for 15 minutes or more. And so even as members of our community might look at our website and say, wait a second, I've heard of more people having this this condition or maybe being exposed, we might be thinking of different things as it applies to these different vocabulary words that are being used in the system. But I want you to know that we're doing our best to try to accurately portray the things that we know about. And we're trying to work, again, within a process that is new to us, and we're trying to get that right. So I appreciate any patience that you can share with us. We're certainly not trying to hide any information or steer anyone in a direction that might not be correct. So what else are we going to try to do? What might be in modification number 2? I've been having conversations with our principals at the middle schools, and the 6th grade group of students is another critical group. And while much good is being done in our hybrid process and also in our remote learning process, we have a lot of kids that are missing school. And we are trying to adapt what we're doing in our schools to some of these specific grade levels so that we can get them back in the buildings. We can help to help them in that transition between elementary school and middle school, and at the same time help get them ready to earn those credits that are needed as they progress from middle school to our high schools. So even though we are working to get these 6th grade students back, we don't have a date for that as of yet. However, both principals at both of our middle schools are optimistic that this is doable. They're working with their staff members to help put processes in place so that we can invite those 6th graders back. So I'm hoping that by the end of the month, we might be able to do that, and just kind of giving you a bit of a heads up here, and certainly hoping that our families who might be watching tonight would take interest in that as well. Our 7th and 8th grade students at the middle school, if we were to do this 6th grade change, would remain in their cohort groups. And of course, you know how that works. We're also watching our state and national leaders, watching for any particular or possible changes that might come about because of governmental restrictions being relaxed, which will help us to put more students back into our schools as well. I think that our community, and I hope our staff, will take some comfort in knowing that we have seen very few cases of COVID-19 in our schools, at least from a student perspective. There have been more adults that have been impacted than students. And so I am confident that as we continue to take these proactive steps of wearing our face masks, keeping socially distant, and cleaning our buildings and just being careful about how we hold school. I am confident that we can keep moving in a positive direction. And just as we started the school year and got used to a certain way of doing things, as we start this next cycle of modifications, I'm hoping that here again we'll be able to see that we can do this and that people will feel more comfortable as we bring more students back into the buildings. And then, of course, an important and exciting part that was also talked about tonight is that student athletics and activities will begin from a competition perspective after our Christmas break has been completed. So to end my little portion of the presentation here, I wanted to just offer an opportunity for some discussion with the trustees to see if you had any questions, and also to see if you wanted me or my staff to come back in a future meeting to talk about other potential changes or concerns that you have been hearing about. I know that you're contacted regularly from staff and also from members of the community, and I would certainly like to have an opportunity to provide additional information or to actually have conversation like what we had in our reopening before we started school. And I don't want you to feel like you're being left out of that in any way. I do know that I had some direction at the meeting where there was some guidance given where we presented our current model. And if any of those things are changing, I certainly want to work with you so that we're on the same page and working towards a common goal.
Do we have any discussion or questions for Mr. Stokes? Go ahead, Joe.
Richard, again, thank you. Just in general, like we talked about, and as you mentioned, we're going to get concerns as we go through this. We're 9 weeks into it. There's still questions, there's concerns, there's everything from the amount of work to safety to student engagement and all those things. And I think really, as you're trying to do, is just the more communication we can have with staff, the better. I think of all the concerns I've heard, and you've addressed some of them, is at least the perception of some staff feeling they're not getting information in a timely manner and sometimes hearing it from outside sources. And I've cautioned people to be careful that they're not just getting that they might be getting perception instead of facts. But just if, as hard as it is, the more communication, timely communication we can provide staff, the better. And I think we're trying to do the best job we can, and like everything, there's always room for improvement. But that's kind of all the concerns I've heard, that kind of rose to near the top of the list for me, is just making sure timely information is given to our staff so that when they get asked questions, they're in a position to be able to respond in an intelligent, accurate manner.
I just want to thank you. I think this is a great step, and the feedback that I've heard has been mostly positive from parents and the staff that I've spoken to as well. There's been a lot of worry about those younger kids having to do so much work remotely, and so I think this is a good first step to bring those kids that they all need it, but they need it. I have a fifth grader, so I can see that the second and first graders and kindergartners need that in-person instruction more. And so hopefully, I feel confident about it too, because we've seen that Douglas County and Washoe County have had their elementary students in school pretty much full-time. They do have more square footage than we have, and so they've been able to space their students out more. But so far, it doesn't seem like the outbreaks in Washoe have been related to that. And so I'm optimistic that we'll continue to have lower numbers in our district as well. And then just with the playground too, I know the kids are so excited, and there's probably going to be hand washing when or hand sanitizing as they come in, just kind of what you do now. You come back from anywhere and you sanitize your hands. So I just wanted to thank you for putting this out there and that we're continuing to move forward with this, so thanks.
Mr. Stokes, part of the information I received and some of the concerns from the staff is, are the rooms that these kids going to have enough room to have the 3-foot social distancing? I've received, I think we've probably all received a couple emails about that.
Our principals have said that they believe they can set those rooms up to meet that requirement. However, those numbers are set up around 22 kids per one teacher. So if those numbers on any given day are exceeded, our staff, our principals at least, have also been given guidance to create smaller groups. We do have staff members in our buildings that are special education paraprofessionals. They're also EL professionals. And so by taking students from all aspects of the classroom and making small groups and moving them to another place where they might do individual work based on remedial efforts or possibly even reading and math, then they can maintain those social distanced aspects of the classroom in such a way that they're able to carry forward. And so I would maybe ask Mr. Walker, I know he runs a school where K through 12 student, or K through 2 students, sorry, are also there with the other numbers of students, and maybe he's got some good ideas for us that we could utilize. But I think we're learning. I think this is a step that we'll work into, but we believe that with our current enrollment and our current number of classrooms that we'll be okay. But we think there could be some need to modify what we're doing as well.
Thank you. And also, I read an article just this afternoon where the 20,000 5th through 12th graders, and it's in the Nevada NEA today, and I'd encourage people to read it. It's on page 11. There was a group that surveyed or talked to 20,000 different students about their experience with remote learning. And I think if you look at that, 50% said they felt, let me read it here. They felt depressed or stressed, and it's a lot of good information in there. So I think it's why it's very important as soon as we can to try to get everybody back in school. And I know that we can't right now because of all the restrictions, but I think if people read this article, that they'll realize that it is very important to try to get the kids back in school as soon as possible. There's 64% says there's too many distractions at home that interferes with their learning. Let's see, there's 30% say there's not an adult at home to help them with their schoolwork. 25% said there's no teachers available to help with their schoolwork. 16% said there's limited or no access to a computer. 24% are worried about the health of the family. 12% said they don't feel safe at home. And so I think that's why it's very important that we try to get the kids back as soon as possible under safe conditions. And I appreciate the steps you've taken to try to get at least some back into school. Thank you.
So going back to the Pennington Foundation grant, when you've put these things in the nurses in the isolation room, do they now feel comfortable with those solutions? Because I know that we've had some interaction with them not feeling that being attached to the ventilation systems in the building is a good idea. So has that made that go away, their concerns?
I think there's a combination of things that need to happen. I can tell you that Mr. Cornick, along with his right-hand man, Virgil Berry, have walked all of the nurses' offices, and They are aware of the positives and negatives as it applies to those ventilation systems, and they're doing their best to remediate them. So that, along with these other devices, are aimed at trying to bring some comfort to our staff and also to students, parents, anybody who might be hearing what we're trying to accomplish.
You know, and I'll just say thank you. Thank you to the parents who have been really patient with us and obviously very concerned about the education of their child. Thank you to the teachers who are working really hard and doing 2 and 3 times the work that we normally ask of them. And, you know, one of the things that I often say to people who work for me, and I even talked about this with Mr. Stokes, is that right now we don't know the impact of these school closures on education. And I think all of us who work in this field anticipate some kind of decline in the levels of education for these students. And we don't know how deep that'll be. This is not an ideal year, and we can't make this perfect. And we're asking teachers to learn on the fly and implement in the blink of an eye and move these kids forward. And most teachers are perfectionists, and they truly care about the progress of their students and what's happening in that classroom. And I think one of the things we have to say is it's okay for it not to be perfect. We don't expect you to be top notch right away with these new technologies and finding ways to use this data and teach a 9-year-old remotely, which is very challenging. And so if we're doing the best we can do, if we're doing everything we can do to stop the decline and even just maintain this year until we get back to normal, I think that's a victory. And we certainly want high achievement from our students, and we want these kids to excel. But we also have to be realistic in the fact that we can't control these environments, and we can't control what's going to happen if there is a second wave or if we have a severe flu season. You know, there's certain things that are going to be out of our control. And so we're going to have to do everything we can do to keep everybody safe. But it doesn't have to be perfect. And so, you know, the teachers I talk to, the frustration that I'm hearing is they want it to be perfect. They want to teach these kids, and they're doing what they can do. And so I think that from our district administration, our site principals, from our colleagues, it's okay to tell each other, did you do your best? Yes, we're going to have room to grow. And we might even have that discussion about what can we do next? That's okay. That's part of growing. That's being a healthy organization. But don't be so hard on yourself. Do everything you can do to support these kids. And that's going to be our first step. And I think that's our first priority. And I think that we just need to let our professionals know it's okay not to be the top of every list every year. This is a year that we're just doing the best we can do, and that's okay. Do I have any other comments or questions for Mr. Stokes?
I do, Mr. Walker. Along those lines, I know the teachers don't have to be the best they can be, but the ones that a lot of us have spoken to, they feel really overwhelmed. And I think if there's anything the district could do to take a little bit of the workload off of them, especially this year, like you said, when we don't have to be perfect, I think it would go a long ways to help the teachers. And I'd encourage the district to do that if possible, to take some kind of load off of them.
Which brings up another point. Have we heard anything from the state about the testing and stuff? Are they going to waive that or at least take that strain off of our teachers?
Laurel, do you have something on that? I see you're nodding your head.
That was what I was going to
Okay,
ask.
I didn't attend that English Council
Was
meeting.
that a wishful thinking question, Mr. Stokes?
Well, obviously, when you're up against the kinds of challenges that we have, it's going to be difficult to put your best foot forward when the conditions have changed. I mean, we all learn in different ways, and to have certain expectations when the conditions have changed drastically are, yeah, not exactly best case scenario. Mrs. Fuson, are you out there? Do you want to chime in on this?
And then just so everybody knows, Laurel is next. I've given her the go-ahead like 5 times, and she keeps getting passed up.
Tasha Fuson for the record. Currently, testing status is what it has been since the last time we talked. There are no test waivers at this point in time. So we are moving forward with our test calendar and test security planning as we have. I don't hear of any conversation whatsoever on behalf of the state to waive any of the testing, because my understanding is that there are no waivers at the federal level. So when there's no federal waivers, then there's no way for our state to actually waive testing requirements either. So we're just going to continue to move forward. Where there is some flexibility is that for full-time remote students, there are certain, depending on the test, there are certain tests that we are allowed to waive for full-time remote students. But if they're hybrid or in person, then we're required to test them, and that's test by test situation. So, again, our hope right now is that we just really want our families to understand that the assessments we are doing, we want to use them to determine where our students are at and where we want to adjust instruction to meet them where they're at, to help them fill in learning gaps, and not for families or students to feel stressed about testing in terms of it being an overall grade of their ability. Obviously, nationally and internationally speaking, we're all kind of in the same boat. So, we'll proceed with all the requirements that we have, but even for our teachers' sake, really understanding that at the end of the day, the test scores are really only there to help us inform instruction, not to judge anyone's ability, certainly. It's just to kind of give us feedback on where our kids are at and where we need to grow.
So in that same vein, has the state also talked about the teacher evaluation and making, you know what I'm going to say? Man, I debated last night. I can't talk tonight.
Adjustments to the
Have they made
SLGs for
adjustments?
teachers.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, the best person in this room to know about that would probably be Mr. Wallace, as he was sitting on that committee, is my understanding. And some minor adjustments have been made, but nothing of real substance.
So we need everybody to email their federal representatives in the state and tell them, make part of the Recovery Act to make waive testing. And then we need everybody to go to the state level and tell them we need help because we can't evaluate our teachers and it's not fair and it's adding stress to their lives. Okay, so Carson City, if you're out there, start emailing now. Let's get this done.
Tasha, I had a question. Oh, I'm sorry, Laurel, you've been waiting.
You want to go? Just another question I had regarding attendance and how, because I just, there needs to be so much flex this year. If you have a kid who has a runny nose, you're going to keep them home. And we want to encourage the parents to be overly cautious with any of that stuff. And hopefully that will eliminate the flu season being severe. And hopefully it will help control other things like that. But I don't want people stressing out about the attendance. And so I don't know if there's anything we can do at the state level to help make some adjustments to that so that there can be that, I mean, you're going to have, if you have a child, my sister had it in Washoe, whose son's classroom was in close contact and they were excluded from school. And I mean, maybe the remote attendance takes care of it, but I hope the state makes some adjustments to that, I guess.
Actually, our state is being quite lenient with attendance in terms of students being able to check in remotely. And really, it's more about this year making sure that we have good communication with families. We don't want to leave students behind. We don't want to let students kind of slip through our fingers, if you will, because of circumstance, and then not be educated. So really what I would say to our families is I agree with you, Trustee Crossman. We definitely want you to keep your children home if they're not feeling well, but we definitely want you to communicate with the school that that is the circumstance, right? So if students are sick, please keep them home. We'll mark them as excused absence. And then if they are capable of working from home, they can check in remotely, and all of that will take care of any kind of legal requirements in terms of attendance. The students we do worry about are the ones that we're not seeing evidence of engagement in education, and we're not having communication with families. And I think it's all of you can understand. We're very concerned when the students are not under our direction in school, that they're still receiving a quality education. And I know we all have circumstances and families have challenges that they're dealing with, but we want to be able to help them through those challenges as well. So whatever the circumstances are, we want them to call the school. We can help with wraparound services. We have school social workers. We have school psychologists. We can help them problem solve and get them resources that they need. But we really do need that communication. We don't want students to simply sit home being non-educated because our families think that there's not resources and support for them. So the communication is key.
Yeah, thanks, Tasha. I think I mentioned this. I apologize if I bring up the same question, but when we talk about test waivers for fully remote students, it's just in my head, I just keep thinking at equity and education. And what is that as a district? What kind of challenges is that doing to us, to where we're assessing some of the kids with these standardized tests, but not all of them?
So in reality, thank you for the question, Trustee Casiopo. Like it's a MAP assessment right now. For instance, we were doing that remotely with students at home. MAP assessment scores are not part of the Nevada School Performance Framework. Again, it does help us, though, really assess where our students are and where their learning gaps are, and help us build plans for intervention and support. We are required to map assess students for read by grade 3 and progress monitor where they're at. So that's where really those relaxed expectations are. Although, again, we are doing our best to assess all of our students because we want that feedback and we want to know where they are. When it comes to the real heavy testing season, which is really in the spring, that's it. We have time, so I don't know what will happen at the federal level and down to the state level. We might see changes prior to, for instance, ACT testing for high schoolers or SBAC for 3rd through 12th. So we're going to continue to wait on that. Again, the word right now is that there's not going to be, and that we are going to be required to federally report test scores. I will tell you, though, that at the state level, for instance, last year's test scores, because of course we did not assess because of, the kids were 100% at home for several of our spring assessments. But the Department of Education then basically froze all of our schools for their Nevada School for Performance Framework star rating. So star ratings were not updated. And all of our schools at what they were the previous year is what they're on this year. We have been told, however, by the Department of Education that that will not continue this year, so that we are planning to assess this year so that schools' star ratings and NSPFs will be updated. But again, things may change. We don't know what that will look like. So we're planning and preparing for that. The good thing about, however, the way our state works is they do try to compare apples to apples. So you're looking at statewide, where are we at? And I think for our students in Carson City, we're actually in a good space. We're in a good place. Our kids, from the beginning of this school year on, have been receiving minimally a hybrid instruction model or full-time remote, but they've had direct instruction. And we know several larger districts where they've struggled with even getting that distance at piece together. So I don't think that it's going to have a real negative impact overall in terms of our schools and how our schools are rated. So really, I think teachers and administrators kind of need to take that worry off the plate and more so just focus on our kids. Where are kids at? What are they learning? Where are their learning deficits? How can we remediate that? How can we enrich for those students who are soaring? Some kids We have some kids that are really soaring and doing great. But I worry for them because they're moving so fast through the curriculum that I worry that they're going to have nothing to do, honestly, for periods of time because they've moved so fast. So just really trying to be student-centered and focused on what the kids need and not worry about, tests in terms of judgment, I think is really important.
Could I make a suggestion? Since we're getting a little bit off the agenda topic, maybe we could suggest this for a future item and maybe have some more guidance from the Department of Ed to allow them a little bit more time to prepare.
That's fine with me. I just wanted to say thank you. I think that is, I know it's a little off topic, but I think it was important to hear.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
thank you. Can I just, one more circling
Sure,
back to Mr. Stokes' questions? I wanted to piggyback on your comments and Trustee Varner's. Thank you for those comments. I think when we're talking about all the concerns we're hearing about and we're all getting them, I just want to make a plea to the teachers too. We have some that are more vocal than others that'll reach out and say, hey, I'm really concerned about this. And a lot that just stay quiet and absorb it and they're dealing with things internally. But just when I talk about open communication, and I asked Mr. Stokes to try to be as open and timely as we can with information, I really want to ask the same from the teachers as well and the site administrators, because it is a team effort. And if we don't know what the problems are, if Mr. Stokes' office and Tasha and everybody doesn't know what the problems are, it might seem like everybody should know what they are, but there's so many issues going on right now. And there's so many changes, and we really need to hear from people. And we need people to take a deep breath, understand that your concerns are indeed important, but recognize what everybody's going through. And if you're not getting the answers you need, reach out and try to get those answers, but recognize that everybody's struggling right now. And so if we can keep that collaboration, that two-way collaboration open with everybody, I think that's only going to help us all. So principals speaking to staff, staff speaking to principals, the district office speaking to teachers. I mean, everybody should be talking to everybody, and it's hard to do. Time is limited, I know that, but I'm just making a plea to everybody, saying let's all communicate and let's all give each other a little bit of a break. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stokes. I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess. Our next item on the agenda is item number 8, which is the annual report from the Carson City School District Family Life Committee for the 2019-2020 school year. This is for discussion only. And good evening to Sheila Story.
Now you know how it feels when we're down there judging Mr. Carson High.
You can't see anything. And I have glasses on. Oh, my God. Okay. Okay, my name for the record is Sheila Story. I'm the chief nurse for the school district. I'm the school nurse at Carson High, and I'm also the chair for the Family Life Advisory Committee. Before I start talking about the Family Life Advisory Committee, I just want to say that, these are difficult times. And being a parent in the school district with a sophomore with a learning disability, my husband and I have really learned to appreciate what teachers do and how much work it takes to teach a student with a learning disability. My husband and I have spent between 5 and 9 hours from March to June doing homework with Parker at home. And then this school year, with my husband being at home and me being at Carson High, it's been a lot of work. Our teachers have been very flexible and adaptable. With students with needs. We don't get a lot of the homework done until the evening time and/or weekends, because my husband also works full-time from home, but he can't always be in class with Parker on his online days. So the teachers have done an amazing job. They've done they've given us all the accommodations we needed to help Parker be successful. It has been very challenging, though, because we're old and we don't get to the computer as fast as some do. So. And then on a note in regards to school nursing, real quick, I posed a question to the State of Nevada Department of Education in regards to health screenings, and they came back and said, no, you will conduct all your health screenings as normal within a school district. So we're now, I posed a question to them in regards to guidance or extra guidance in regards to how do we conduct our health screenings, which includes vision, hearing in our younger levels and scoliosis in vision and hearing in our middle and high schools. How do we pose safety measures to make sure that we stay safe when we screen our students this year? They have not yet gotten back to me, so we have not yet started our screenings, but the screenings will be taking place probably the second quarter and/or the third quarter of school this year. And I think our nurses are doing well. The school district has provided all the PPE required for all of our school nurses. We do have our isolation rooms. We are using our isolation rooms, and we do gown up with all of our PPE on. It takes about 10 minutes. But we assess them, and we do send them home if needed. And then the schools have always been very, very helpful in getting in there and getting them cleaned directly after the student leaves. We do not use the isolation rooms until they're cleaned, but the custodial staff has been awesome. So I just want to give kudos to
Sheila,
the schools.
maybe we could talk to Mr. Stokes and make an agenda topic in a future meeting and just stick to the agendized items, please? Thank you.
So real quick, the Family Life Advisory Committee for 2019-2020, they met 4 times over the school year. We had a great group of individuals who actively participated in the meeting. They provided good knowledge, understanding, and insight to the material presented following by the with the healthy discussion. We had a great group, and we also had extra individuals attend the meetings and give some good insight, so I greatly appreciate that. We reviewed, like always, the Family Life Advisory Committee rules and procedures. We also reviewed and approved a presentation from Tess Peterson Tess Peterson from Health Information, she's a Health Information Manager at the Nevada Department of Health Foundation on statutory rape. She presented a PowerPoint presentation along with pamphlets, a very good presentation, and we did approve that type of information to be provided within our school district. The second thing, we reviewed and approved DVDs from the Human Relations Media. We were requested to find information on LGBTQ to give more information to our students within a classroom setting, and we did found a really good DVD called Handling Bullies When You're LGBTQ. And then we also reviewed and adopted DVDs from the P&G 2016. These are basically updates from videos we've used in the past in regards to Always Changing and Growing Up for Boys puberty education, Always and Changing Growing Up for Girls puberty education. Basically, this is all about growth and development, more for the younger age student in our elementary level. They're very good and informative. Again, Aaron Bean and I sat on the committee to review the state Nevada health standards, and we kept the group appraised of what's going on there. And also, in one of our discussions, it was a good idea to possibly have some guidance memo that would be drafted by myself and distributed to the district office for teachers regarding the work of the Family Life Advisory Committee. Basically, it's a gentle reminder that the Family Life Advisory Committee does exist and why we exist, and if they do have any type of curriculum they want to present within their classroom of sensitive nature in accordance with the NRS, that they does have to be reviewed and approved through our committee. And I also, we also sent them a list of our dates of meetings coming up, and they're always welcome to attend and participate. Any questions in regards to what we completed through the Family Life Advisory Committee for the 2019-2020 school year? Any questions?
Not a question, but just, well, I guess it is a question, but just for the public's knowledge, these DVDs that you have reviewed and approved, they are able to check those out and view them. aren't they?
100%,
Yep,
yes.
just to let the public
Yes.
know.
Yep. Any parent can do that, yes. Any other questions regarding what we went through last year? Okay, great. Well, that ends my report.
Thank you, Sheila. Don't go too far, though, because the next item on the agenda is the informational update on the membership changes within the Family Life Committee.
Okay.
Fawn Lewis from the parent representative to the counselor representative, and Aaron Bean from the parent representative to the teacher representative to serve 3 terms from October 2020 to October 2023. October 2023. This is for discussion only. Sheila?
Yes, so in your packet, you're given a list of committee members and their terms of office. We have asked, and they were graciously accepted. Fawn Lewis was one of our parents last year. We did have our counselor decide not to stay on the committee, so Fawn Lewis said she'd be happy to take over the school counseling position. And then we had our teacher, Tina Wagner, who chose not to stay on, and Aaron Bean very graciously said she would be the teacher representative, which then opens up 2 parent vacancies.
Do we have any conversation or question for Sheila? No. Thank you, Sheila.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to approve the selection of Family Life Committee members to serve 3-year terms, October 2020 to October 2023, in the following category: 2 parent representatives. This is for possible action. Sheila Story.
Okay. Thanks once again, President Walker, and all trustees and members of the Carson City School District. We put out a notice in regards to parent participation on the Family Life Advisory Committee, and we did have some input from some community members who have children within our school district. They did send in a letter of intent, and they also sent in a resume. So I'd like to, at this time, and I'm not sure if they're here, Valerie Melendez and/or Kendra Williams, are they here? Kendra, okay, great.
Good evening, Kendra.
So anyway, I'd like to introduce Kendra. Kendra is a native of Nevada, born and raised in Carson City. She graduated from Carson High School in 2010. She graduated from Western Nevada Community College with an associate's degree in criminal justice in 2015. She has boys who attend our school district. She is a case investigator for the Department of Public Safety, along with program officer for the Department of Corrections. She comes with a lot of knowledge and understanding in regards to our criminal justice system, and I believe she can bring a lot to our committee and help us out in making good, sound decisions through the Family Life Advisory Committee. Do you have any questions for Kendra?
Kendra, did you want to introduce yourself, or you have anything to say for the board?
So my name is Kendra Williams, and I do have two boys. One goes to Mark Twain Elementary School, and then the other is only 3, so he's not in the school district yet. But I am a case investigator for the sex offender registry, so I've seen a lot of juveniles come across my desk as of lately. There's been an extreme uptick, and I have some pretty good views on teaching consent within our school system.
Excellent. Do we have any questions for Kendra? Joe? And then it looks like Lupe, you'll be next.
Yeah, not a question so much, Kendra, but I want to thank you for, stepping up and applying. I mean, when I look at the resumes for you and Valerie, I mean, it's nice to get people with vast experiences. We hope for that on the board and in all really aspects of life. And so I think by having these diverse experiences and people that have vested interest, it serves our students and our community very well. So thank you very much for volunteering.
Of course, I was so excited to see it, honestly.
I'm happy for that. Thank you.
And then the second candidate for a parent vacancy is,
1 second, wait,
I'm
Lupe
sorry,
has a
I
question.
Thank you.
apologize.
Sorry, Sheila. I just want to echo what Trustee Casiopa said. I'm like, where am I? I think it's very impressive that you wanted to make a difference and to put your education into good use. So I appreciate your willingness to support our efforts from the district. So thank you.
Absolutely. This is my community, and our kids are our future.
Sheila, go ahead.
ready? Okay. So our next candidate is Valerie Melendez. She's a parent of an 8th grader who attends Eagle Valley Middle School. She has a degree in science from the University of Nevada, Reno from 1987. She also attended the Native Nations Institute in University of Arizona. She has experience within the Northern Nevada Development Authority. She works within the Economical Development as a coordinator, Tribal Economic Development Liaison. She's also Sierra Regional Economic Council coordinator. She does a lot of volunteer work in regards to our Native American culture, the Nevada Tribal Leadership Development, State Federal Tribal Coordinator, Reno Sparks, Indian Colony, and so on and so forth. She comes with a lot of great experience and knowledge. She was also the Empire PTA president when her child attended Empire Elementary School. So I think she's also going to be a great candidate for the Family Life Advisory Committee. I don't believe she is here this evening, but I hope I gave a good introduction for her.
I think that you've come up with 2 great candidates. And just to remind you, every year the legislature is in session. They go after sex education and try to make it broad. We've always been able to say, it works. We have a fabulous sex education program through our Family Life Committee. So I want you guys to keep up the good work so that we can keep going to the legislature and say, we don't need a blanket program. We want to stick with our own. So it seems like, you're doing that on one level, but I want you to know there is another level to this that's real important. And I think your background is going to be great. We're so excited.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the Carson City School Board of Trustees approve the selection of Valerie Melendez and Kendra Williams as parent representatives to serve on the Family Life Advisory Committee for a 3-year term, October 2020 to October 2023.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion from Joe, second from Lupe. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on the line, Raymond?
Seeing no public comment online?
Okay, any public comment emails, Renee? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, and thank you for volunteering to help us out with this.
Thank you, President Trustee and other trustees.
Item number 11 on the agenda, discussion and possible action to approve the adoption of the 2020 Career and Technical Education materials for grades 9 through 12 for the Carson City School District as budgeted to include Health Science 1 and 2, American Heart Association, Basic Life Support. This is for possible action. Tasha Fuson and Candy Ruff. Good evening.
Candy Ruff, CTE Coordinator, for the record. Thank you, Mr. Walker, members of the board, Mr. Stokes. I'm here for a cleanup adoption of a reclassified text. In your packets, you have a single instructional material presented for adoption for career and technical education. The publisher is the American Heart Association, and the text is Basic Life Support Provider Manual. This text was initially classified as supplemental and did not come before the board for adoption in June of 2019, although all of the adoption steps, including parent review and community review, were completed. In the past 2 weeks, the Basic Life Support Provider Manual was reclassified by the state as a primary text. Randy Honeywell, who is the Assistant Director of Cralio, contacted CTE and asked if we would complete the adoption process. Because CTE had already completed the adoption process in June of 2019, and the text met the requirements at that time and was reviewed last week to still meet the requirements, Mrs. Fuson approved the instructional materials adoption process, signed the packet, and the final timeline was changed per direction of the state. The adoption timeline now reads board approval pending today's date. This instructional materials adoption has been tentatively placed on the state board agenda for November under instructional materials adoption. So no pressure, no pressure. This instructional material is currently used in the following CTE pathways and courses. In the Agricultural and Natural Resources pathway, veterinary science students receive CPR certification. In Health Science and Public Safety, Health Science 1 and Health Science 2, Sports Medicine 1, Sports Medicine 2, Emergency Medical Services, and Emergency Medical Technician, EMT, all receive the certification. There is also a plan for military science students who are now under the umbrella of CTE, this is their 3rd year, to receive CPR training and certification. As soon as we are able to have 2 of our 3 military instructors receive training, we will implement, but we're not allowed to do that right now. Students utilizing this primary text, receiving instruction, and successfully passing the certification exams earn their CTR First Aid certification, which is a contributing factor to earning the College and Career Ready diploma. CPR First Aid is also listed on the Owen, Nevada Industry Credential List. Does anyone have any questions?
Just a roundabout one, how many CTE classes do we have? Or opportunities, I guess?
We currently have 18 programs of study. There are 52 courses in 18 programs of study.
I think she was trying to stump you and she failed.
Candy, I just had a question on the checklist where it says meets or it's inadequate. One of the categories, there were a lot of, or not a lot, but there were a few that said no teacher edition available. But on page 3, it talks about material includes access to multilingual glossary. And somebody checked inadequate, but the comment was Spanish version available. Is it not available, or what was the issue with it being inadequate?
The version of the Spanish version was not available for review, but it is in place.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
This is for possible action if we have no further discussion.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the recommended 2020 Career and Technical Education CTE materials for grades 9 through 12 to include Health Science 1 and 2, American Heart Association, Basic Life Support as proposed by the Committee for the Carson City School District as budgeted as presented.
All right, we have a motion from Joe, or motion from Laurel, second from Joe. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, any public comment?
Seeing no public comment online?
Okay, I'm gonna call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Fabulous, thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is item number 12, approval of the consent agenda. This is for possible action.
I move that the Carson City School Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Stacy, second from Dawn. Any further discussion from the board? All right, any public comment?
Seeing no public comment online?
Okay, seeing no public comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 13, informational items. This is for discussion only. Do we have any questions for district staff regarding the informational items? Or any informational items?
No, but I would just like to thank the community center staff for setting this up. I mean, this is an incredible way to do it with the construction that's going on in the Sierra Room, and I know it takes an extra effort on that staff, and we do appreciate that effort that they have taken, so thanks to them.
Hopefully people will also understand that we all seem a little bit out of it. There's a lot of glares on these plastic partitions, and seeing who's raising their hand to talk, and also having monitors blocking the people talking have made a few challenges this evening, so thank you for the patience. All right, our next item on the agenda is requests for future agenda topics. And I know we had the starts of a lively discussion on assessments, and in light of the fact that there's no new guidance, is this something we want to ask at a real soon meeting, or maybe after the election, and see if a new administration or the current administration, if reelected, have any further guidance after the election?
I don't think it's an immediate item to bring back to the board, but it's maybe just something to keep in mind too as we enter even the legislative session this year.
Or if it looks like something's actually coming about, but I just don't think that there's any reason at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to, at some point, and it's not a rush, but, you know, we constantly on some of these questions defer to the state, or we're waiting on information from the state. And I don't want to put them in an awkward spot, but it'd be nice to have somebody from the State Department of Education, you know, to maybe come and present to us at some point, just to give us their perspective. Because it's easy for us to say, you know, why aren't you letting us do this? You know, why are we doing this and that? It'd be nice to hear from them and maybe have that ability to share some ideas if they'd be willing.
Well, and I think we'd probably want to be pretty specific of who we're asking, what department, and maybe work with Mr. Stokes on that when we.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd certainly want to be well prepared and let them know specifics on what we would like.
All right, any other future agenda topics? All right. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Thank you, everyone.